my God, we have a pre-calc test.
Oh no! We have to study. It's faster if you roll. That was funny!
Filming. Where are we gonna find somewhere to model harmonic motion?
We just have to cross this river. Let's model harmonic motion on that swing over there.
It takes Rishi 3 seconds to go from his lowest point to his highest point. His lowest point is 2 feet off the ground and his highest point is 3 feet off the ground. Let's calculate this problem.
The formula for harmonic motion is y equals a cosine bx minus c plus d. A stands for the amplitude, which is half the distance from the maximum point to the minimum point. B is 2 pi divided by the period, and the period is how long it takes one revolution for the function to go from its maximum back to its maximum point. C is the horizontal shift, and D is the vertical shift. So if you have the equation y equals a cosine bx minus c plus d, the a value is 3 minus 2 divided by 2, which is the maximum versus the minimum divided by 2, which is half. B is 3 seconds, which is half the revolution because that's the time it takes from the maximum to the minimum point. So one revolution would be 6 seconds, so you would do 2 pi divided by 6, which is pi over 3. C is 0 because it's not shifted horizontally, and D is 0.5 plus 2, which is 2.5, because it starts 2 feet off the ground, and you add 0.5 because that's half the distance from the max to the minimum. Your final equation should be y equals negative 0.5 cosine pi over 3x plus 2.5. Lastly, the graph should be negative cosine because it starts up, not down.
So now we have to graph the equation. So Rishi starts 2 feet off the ground at 0, then after 3 seconds he travels to 3 feet, and then another 3 seconds he travels back down to 2 feet, and so on. And then you connect the dots and you get a cosine graph.
So there could be 2 types of questions asked. One asking for the y if given the x, or the other being asking for the x when given the y.
So the first follow-up question we're being asked is, at what height will Rishi be 10 seconds high? So we're using the same model, and the first step will be recognizing that at 10 seconds, that's going to be on the x-axis since time is our independent variable here. So we plug in 10 to the equation for x, and then we can start solving. So remember that you have to multiply the pi over 3 times the 10, because ideally there would be parentheses containing cosine pi over 3 times 10. You can't do the cosine pi over 3 as half and then multiply that by 10. That would get you the wrong answer. So you take the cosine of 10 pi over 3, multiply that by negative half, and then add your 2.5, and that gives you a final answer of 2.75 feet.
So another type of problem would be if we have to find an x value from a given height. So for example, in this problem, we have to find the first 2 times when he will be at 2.75 feet. So if we set up the equation, we put the 2.75 into the y, and then we bring over the 2.5, so you subtract that and then divide by the negative 0.5, and then you have to do the inverse cosine of that quantity. You don't do the inverse cosine of the pi over 3. So after you do the inverse, then it becomes that whole thing equals pi over 3x. And then at that point you would just divide that thing by pi over 3, and then you would get your x value. So since this question also asks for the first 2 times that this occurs, we have to find the other point. Now to do this, we know that 2 seconds is before the middle mark of 3. So all you have to do for this one is find the distance away from the middle to 2, which is 1, and then add that to the 3 to get the other side, which would be 4. So your answers would be 2 seconds and 4 seconds.
Yeah, well thank you, Andy. Thanks.